Call the meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. Can I get a mover and a seconder for December 15th, 2000, as a printed, the agenda, Councilor Lafayette and Councilor Trombley.
Moved by Councillor Lafayette, seconded by Councillor Trombley, that the agenda for the regular meeting of December 15th, 2025 be approved as printed.
All in favor? Carried. Is there disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? I see none. Adoption of the minutes for November 17th and 24th, 2025. And mover seconded, Councilor Jiguer and Councilor Charlebois.
Moved by Councillor Jiguer, seconded by Councillor Charlebois, that the following minutes are hereby adopted. Regular meeting, November 17th, 2025, 6:30 p.m. Special meeting, November 24th, 2025, 5 p.m.
Is there any comments or questions on the minutes? All in favor? Carried. So go into presentations, Nelly Lake capacity, Lakeshore assessment. Go ahead, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just before we invite Brent to speak and introduce Brent, just to kind of bridge the gap, to provide some context. So I believe back in approximately the fall, council gave direction to staff to initiate a lake capacity assessment for Nelly Lake. That assessment has been completed, and there's been a report developed with Brent leading that on behalf of Hutchinson Environmental. So very pleased. It's been a great experience working with Brent, and very pleased to introduce Brent and welcome him to the Town of Iroquois Falls Council.
Thank you. So Brent, you may proceed with the presentation to council.
Okay, thanks. I will share my screen here. Hopefully that does the trick. All right, can everybody see that okay? Yeah, perfect. Okay, yeah, good evening, Mayor and Council, and thanks for having me here to present the results of the Nelly Lake Lakeshore Capacity Assessment. I have been completing lakeshore capacity assessments and developing management studies like this for municipalities like yours for 17 years now. So quite versed in the tools that are available, and I'm happy to discuss any questions or comments as you wish throughout the presentation or at the end. So I have 17 slides of information that provide some background information. I outline the data that we use to characterize water quality in Nelly Lake and data that we used as input into the different models that we developed. I got some slides on the results of our different development capacity assessments, and then some conclusions and next steps. It's my opinion that lake management should be based on good scientific information and well-known tools. So I hope this report can be used by the town for science-based planning moving forward. So first off, Nelly Lake is listed as a put, grow, take lake trout by the province because it contains lake trout and they are stocked. So this is important in terms of development capacity because it means that lake is subject to a dissolved oxygen guideline of 7 milligrams per liter. And that is to protect lake trout. So essentially, if the lake has less than 7 milligrams per liter of oxygen in the deep part of the lake, the part that stays cold throughout the summer, the hypolimnion, then the province recommends that development is limited on those lakes. I'll talk about that a little bit more, but that's an important distinction to make off the hop. So I wanted to mention it on the background slide. As you all know, I'm sure the northern half of the lake is in unorganized lands. So the municipality of municipal affairs and housing has the decision authority over development proposals on unorganized lands. They typically request review of development proposals by M&R and Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks. And it's the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks that often comments on lake capacity issues and how development proposals align or are consistent with provincial development policies, such as the PPS. Sure, you all know that Nelly Lake experienced severe flooding in the spring of 2023, and blue-green algal bloom was reported by the Porcupine Health Unit in the summer of 2023. And the town has identified concerns regarding the use of trailers, and the official plan actually states that there's specific concerns with capacity in Nelly Lake. So Hutchison Environmental Sciences, we were retained to assess the lake health and development capacity through a few different, I like to call them lines of evidence. So that included a review of background and field collected water quality data, analysis of lake trout habitat, that deep water oxygen that I talked about a couple slides before, a lakeshore capacity assessment, which is a phosphorus-based model that the province recommends. And we also looked at recreational carrying capacity, which is more of an assessment of social density. So I've been doing this long enough that I realize that there's strengths and limitations with all of these different approaches. So I like to look at all of them at the same time, acknowledge the strengths and acknowledge the limitations. And again, use a multiple lines of evidence approach to try and get a more holistic understanding of lake health and development capacity so that municipalities can move forward with a balanced understanding of the lake and the tool and the conclusions of the tools that are available. So there was limited background data available. Ministry of Environment had total phosphorus and Secchi disk depths information from 2005 and 2024. Total phosphorus is important. People have probably heard about that before. It's often the limiting nutrient in a lake for the growth of algae or aquatic plants. So it's a very important parameter to consider during lake management. Secchi disk depth is a measure of water clarity, where a disc is lowered into the water and back up, often by volunteers, so you can see how clear the water is. And then Ministry of Natural Resources completed temperature and dissolved oxygen profiles in 2017. That's because MNR is more focused on fish stocks. So again, that's to characterize the physical stability of the water column, as the lake turned over, does it have separate thermal layers, and how much oxygen is there in the lake, again, for lake trout. So we supplemented that data because there wasn't a lot with a field survey in September. So we looked at 3 sites in the deepest areas. I'll show you that on the next slide where they were. And then at each site, we collected field measurements of water temperature, oxygen, conductivity, and pH at 1 meter intervals. So right close to the top, right down to the bottom of the lake. And then we collected samples both near the surface through the photic zone, we call it, and then 1 meter off bottom. And we sent those samples to a lab and got them analyzed for a variety of different parameters. So this is where I start to have some better visuals for everybody. So this is our map that just shows the Nelly Lake watershed, which is actually really small watershed for the lake, headwater lake too. So nothing's draining into it, no other lakes. The round dots are residences or buildings, and the the squares are the sampling locations. So the LPP sites, which there are 2, LPP 1 and 2, that's the Lake Partner Program sites that the Ministry of Environment has, and which were the sampling, which was probably completed by a volunteer. And the NL sites are just our Nelly Lake sites that we sampled in 2025. The depths of those sites range from 15 to 23 meters. So it's quite a deep lake, considering the size of it. So here are the water quality data that we collected. There are no big surprises with the data set. I'll run through each parameter quickly. Again, the depths range from 15 to 23.1 meters. The Secchi disc depths were 4.3 meter at each site. Again, that's pretty moderate, showing like a moderate level of water clarity. Ammonia and dissolved organic carbon are also moderate. Sometimes you'll have higher dissolved organic carbon concentrations in lakes that are more tea stained, that they get a lot of drainage from wetlands. So that's why we look at that one. We look at iron because sometimes in lakes, there's a large phosphorus load that comes up from the sediment, and iron concentrations are indicative of that, because if they are reduced from ferric iron to ferrous iron in low oxygen environments, then it's a good indication that we have internal phosphorus loading, which in this case, we had a very small amount. You can see total phosphorus second from the bottom. The numbers in brackets are the values from the samples we collected 1 meter off bottom. So they're slightly higher than the surface samples, but when we have a major internal load of phosphorus, those are often 10 or 20 times higher. So again, no real concerns there. All the nitrogen measurements are relatively low. The lake is strongly phosphorus limited, that indicating that phosphorus controls the growth of algae and plants in Nelly Lake, which is pretty common, but it's always something that we try to check. So yeah, all in all, water quality looked okay. No big surprises. Kind of moderate ranges in the parameters, or slightly low in some cases. We have a FluoroProbe, it's called, which you can lower into the water, and it can characterize the algae community based on fluorescence. So it uses pigment fluorescence and chlorophyll A concentrations to determine the amount of different types of algae that are present. It doesn't get right down to the species level, but it gives you a good idea of general algal concentrations and types that are present. So we did this on the day of sampling. I mean, if you had concerns about algae, you would want to be out there doing this more frequently, every 2 weeks throughout a growing season, or you'd want to be there during an algal bloom. But I mean, we were there, so we did it anyways. And there, again, no big concerns. In LA, like the algae community was predominantly green algae, which is in green on both of those bar graphs, followed by diatoms and cryptophytes. I mean, the big one is the fact that the cyanobacteria, also known as blue-green algae, is pretty low on both these occasions, and that's the one we don't want to see because some species can produce toxins. So here are the water quality data from the temperature and dissolved oxygen profiles that have been collected in Nelly Lake. The ones we collected are the ones on the right, and the ones that were collected by Ministry of Natural Resources are the smaller graphs on the left. So a number of them, 6 out of 8 on the left, were all collected in April. And you can see that there's cool water temperatures. Temperatures are the ones in blue. You can see temperatures are relatively cool. Dissolved oxygen concentrations are relatively high. Sometimes they're declined right near the bottom. That might even just be because the sensor was on the bottom on those measurements. And then in July, you can see temperatures were about 20 degrees for the top 5 meters of the lake, and then they declined from the surface down to about 7 degrees. And that's kind of what we saw in September as well. You can see the temperature was about 20 degrees for the top 5-6 meters, and then it declined through what's called the thermocline from about 5 till 9 meters. And then temperatures were pretty consistent in the deeper parts of the lake from there, about 5 to 7 degrees. And you can see the oxygen followed a similar pattern and then slowly, continually declined with depth at each site. Again, pretty consistent. Shows what you call a dimictic lake that would turn over, and there would be some oxygen decline with depth, which is what we typically see. So, okay, so now we're into the capacity considerations. This first one is the one that has to do with oxygen that I've mentioned a couple times now. So there's a little graph there on the bottom left, and that just shows the different thermal layers of a lake. So a lake will turn over twice a year, most lakes. And then while it's set up throughout the growing season in the summer, you have a top layer, the epilimnion, and then you have the thermocline, where the temperature changes more than 1 degree per meter. And then you have the bottom layer of the lake, the hypolimnion. And the hypolimnion is important for lake trout. We have a picture of there on the right, because they require those cold, well-oxygenated waters to survive and thrive. So we take the different dissolved oxygen measurements and then we calculate how much oxygen there is in that hypolimnion. So the table is an indication of that. It's showing where the hypolimnion starts, at what depth at each site on the day we were there. It shows minimum dissolved oxygen that we measured, depth range, how much area that was in the lake based on the bathymetry, such as that shown on the map on the right. And then that goes on to calculate the mean volume weighted hypolimnetic dissolved oxygen. It's about the worst acronym you could try to use, but that's it. So that's why it says MVWHDO. So all of those concentrations were below 7, and the average is 4.53. So that indicates that the lake is lower than that 7 milligram per liter criterion that the province uses to say, you know, is this lake provide healthy lake trout habitat or not? So that 7 milligrams per liter is actually based on studies completed by NECP scientists who determined that the maximum output for sustained swimming of lake trout is impacted at dissolved oxygen concentrations below that. So again, from that perspective, from the mean volume weighted hypolimnetic dissolved oxygen perspective and the provincial criterion of 7 milligrams per liter, Nelly Lake is overcapacity. So the second line of evidence we looked at is the lakeshore capacity model. And this is the one that's commonly used throughout the province. There's a handbook on it, as you can see here, that was published by Minister of Environment at the time in 2010. So it is a steady state mass balance model, and it estimates phosphorus loading from different inputs, both natural ones from, say, the watershed or rain, and human sources such as septics. So then it takes these loads, and I'll show you in the next slide how it does that. It takes these loads and then it tries to predict a concentration, a phosphorus concentration in the lake. The idea is that it was developed to determine suitable development capacity on lakes through an assessment of phosphorus. So the way it does that is it predicts these phosphorus concentrations, and then you're allowed to go from the background concentration in the lake plus 50%. So the background is just if there were no humans and septics there. So it's show you on the next slide, might make a little bit more sense. So here's a snapshot of the model. So we collected input data on the number and type of development on Nelly Lake to calculate phosphorus loads, as you can see on the top left. And then phosphorus concentrations are modeled based on lake dynamics, based on lake area and catchment area, and how much wetlands there are in the catchment, and how much cleared land there is in the catchment, things like that, how much runoff the lake experiences, if there's internal loading or not. And then the model predicts a phosphorus concentration. In this case, it predicted a phosphorus concentration, I call it TPSO for spring overturn, of 7.74. And so that was within 5% of the measured concentration that we saw of 8.15. So the model was accurate within 5% of measured data, which is really good. If the model is within 20%, the province says you can use it to determine development capacity. So we were happy with the model in this case. So that's what you look at first. Does the model predict concentrations accurately? In this case, it does. And then you can compare it to the provincial water quality objective. Again, that's the background concentration plus 50%, which in this case is 5.68 micrograms per liter. So since our modeled and measured, but especially our model concentration is higher than 5.68, that indicates that the lake is over capacity based on the lakeshore capacity model. So this is, again, not as scientifically minded as of a line of evidence to determine development capacity, but I do like to look at recreational capacity and social crowding, because I find that a lot of people that live on lakes are concerned about this, and it's just a way of getting at those concerns directly. Seguin Township in central Ontario includes a provision for recreational capacity that has been used at the Ontario Land Tribunal. It allows for one residential unit for every 1.6 hectares of offshore lake area, which is beyond the 30-meter nearshore area, or one tourist unit for every 0.8 hectares. Again, really simple way to calculate it, and following this methodology, Nelly Lake is well over capacity for further development, as the used recreational area, as you can see in the table, of 358 hectares is much higher than the offshore area available, which is 57 hectares. So again, the lake is over capacity from that line of evidence. So as mentioned earlier, MMAH, Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, is the decision authority in unorganized areas, and they often solicit input from MECP on lake development matters such as development capacity. And we've shared that the report with MECP, which they could use to comment on development proposals moving forward. So in conclusion, Nelly Lake is over development capacity at 4.53 milligrams per liter. Mean volume weighted hypolymnetic dissolved oxygen is currently below the 7 milligram per liter concentration, which is recommended by the Ministry of Natural Resources for lake trout habitat. So again, from oxygen, it's over capacity. The modeled total phosphorus of 7.74 micrograms per liter is greater than the provincial water quality objective of background plus 50% of 5.68, and therefore it's over capacity based on lakeshore capacity. And recreational capacity indicated the lake is well over capacity for further development based on ... I'm sorry, I missed that, but based on a simple assessment of social crowding. At the same time, measured water quality indicates the lake has good water quality. Obviously, our assessment was somewhat limited. We were only there on one day, and background data was limited. But what we could see based on the information we collected, we didn't note any major concerns with water quality. Again, most concentrations were moderate to low. So just want to indicate that as well. So next steps are, well, up to the town really, but there are some options to develop planning tools based on the lake assessment to limit new development, to mitigate impacts of redevelopment and look for opportunities for lot level improvements. Best management practices are really important in lake management, especially with a lake that is small and is heavily developed, such as Nelly Lake. There are a lot of science out there that shows that the importance of natural shoreline buffers and proper septic maintenance to mitigate impacts from waterfront development. And I'd also recommend that water quality is monitored more consistently moving forward, as data was limited. So there's my contact information if anybody happens to have questions in the future, but I'm happy to answer those now as well.
Is there any comments or questions? Go ahead, Councilor Bruno.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you for the presentation, Brett. Couple questions. My first one in regards to the septic loads you spoke about in the capacity considerations. Could you just take us through kind of what you're looking at in terms of septic loads? Are we considering cottages? Are we considering honey wagons on trailers? Like what falls into that criteria?
Yeah, that's a tough one because it's a model. Obviously, we don't have site-specific information on what's available. So the handbook, the Lakeshore Capacity Assessment Handbook, it has loads associated with each type of development. So went back and forth with town staff, both based on how many lots there are and if they are occupied seasonally, extended seasonally, or permanent, or if they're resort trailers. That's the way the capacity assessment is drawn up. So we use that, and then we calculate the load based on that. And so if it's a permanent residence, then that load that's 2.56 versus 0.69 if it's a seasonal one. So that's higher. So there are some assumptions that go in there. But as a model, it's kind of the best thing we can do. And then there's another tricky part to that, which complicates things even further, is that there's a lot of evidence out there that phosphorus is largely attenuated in soils if the septic's operating effectively. So I also put in a retention coefficient, I call it in the model, that's based on science to align the model more with updated scientific understanding. So we do the best we can with the information we have, but there's obviously a wide range from a properly functioning septic system that's compared to something that is not that.
Go ahead.
Perfect, thank you. And my other question for you is, when you're looking at the impacts of these loads, whether it be septic or, are we considering, let's just use the example of a seasonal camper in an RV who uses his, or her, honey wagon to transport to a local dumping station outside the area of Nelly Lake. Are we considering that in this assessment, or are we just considering those as non-impact?
It's a good question. So again, the model or the lakeshore capacity assessment just has a load for trailers, but that doesn't account for ones that are on holding tanks where the phosphorus could just be removed entirely.
So this would assume that those holding tanks are being dumped locally in the area of the lake.
It would assume that they're on septics.
Okay.
It assumes that they're on septics, but again, I put in a septic retention coefficient of 76%. So, you know, if it's a load of 100, then 23 is getting to the lake and 76 is bound up in soil, again based on some science.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any comments or thoughts from council? Councilor Five?
On the page, capacity considerations again, just before the conclusion. You talk about, in the last bullet point, the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing will ask Ministry of Environment for input on development capacity if, for example, the severance is proposed. Like you're talking about, I'm assuming you're referencing severing an existing lot potentially into two, or putting two homes on a particular lot. Some of these lots are fairly good size. Now, and are we also referring to in the organized? Because I know you've been hired by the town to look at the organized section, even though you've done some testing in the unorganized area. But would this also be included for the unorganized section? I'm assuming the ministry would be looking at this capacity assessment, and if there's any questions with regards to severance, that would be the criteria, I would imagine, right?
Good question. So I just didn't want to leave the assessment hanging out there and that, half of the lake is an unorganized area. So I wanted people to know how management might be impacted by this study in that area. So my experience has been, if there's a development proposal such as a severance of a lot to create one new lot, that, primarily goes through municipality, through the plan and act applications to get approved, and then they, approve it or don't based on their official plan policies. But in an unorganized area, when there aren't those planning tools, MMAH often asks Ministry of Environment what they think about development applications on lakes. So I just wanted to put that into there just to say that that's how this report might be used by them moving forward in the unorganized area.
Go ahead, Councilor Five.
Over on the page of conclusions, the first bullet point, I have some issues with the way that you worded it. It says, therefore, at capacity. You're talking about the dissolved oxygen with regards to lake trout habitat. But you also kind of suggested that it may be overcapacity. So at capacity or overcapacity, I think it's the overcapacity is what you're really referring to, given the numbers, right? Is that correct?
Yes, I would agree with that. My only issue with the oxygen is that, in my opinion, it's predominantly determined by the morphology of the lake. So there might always have been 7 milligrams per liter or less of oxygen in this lake. So I don't like to say it's overcapacity, but I understand what you're saying. At the end of the day, each metric shows that the lake is, limited for future development based on those tools.
Anybody else? Councilor Jiguer?
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. question, because we keep referring to lake trout and in the lake, and that's kind of what we're using for oxygen numbers and whatnot. So if this wasn't a lake trout lake, are the oxygen levels as paramount then? Like if it was just a, I don't know, I want to say a pike lake or whatnot, but I was hoping out of this study to get more of a recreational for people swimming and enjoying the outdoors. Are people at risk at the current levels of the lake?
So yeah, so if it was not a lake trout lake, that whole dissolved oxygen criterion would not apply. So, but the lake would still be over capacity based on the lakeshore capacity model, and it would still be, over capacity just based on a social crowding view of it. In terms of is it safe recreationally, typically those types of programs are based on bacteria measurements, which can change quite rapidly. So that would be a more comprehensive study where you would be collecting bacteria measurements, bi-weekly or weekly, even near beaches. And if you had high bacteria concentrations on numerous occasions, then a beach would get closed. But based on what we could see on the water quality data, there was nothing that indicated, recreational concerns. But again, we didn't study bacteria because we were only going out once and to inform the development capacity assessment.
Before I go to Councillor Bernier, is there any other councillor that wants to ask a question? Okay, Councillor Bernier.
Thank you, Worship. So my next question, Brent, is kind of similar to Councillor Jiguer's. So I don't know how much history of the lake you've looked into over the last, let's say, 10 years to be generous and safe. But I believe maybe even within the last 5 years, some surveying was done by the MNR on the amount of, the species of fish in the lake. And I believe that's to a certain degree, the lake has been transitioned from being stocked from lake trout to splake trout. I say again, generously in the last 5 years. But if we go back to the oxygen levels and staying with the lake trout for the purpose of that's what you assessed during your assessment. Can you talk to us a little bit about the day-to-day things? I know you mentioned actually during Councillor Lefebvre's questions, this is a lake that may have had under those limits from the start point of its time. However, can you talk about maybe the impact a human, the people around the lake can have and how we can impact that oxygen level on a day-to-day basis? What are some things that happen at the lake for us to be able to reduce those things?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I should have mentioned that more just about the linkage. So the concern with the oxygen is that theoretically, you can have nutrient loads from septic and from stormwater, which we're seeing a lot more large stormwater loads to lakes because people's lots and impermeable surfaces are really getting larger at cottage and permanent residences on waterfronts. But so those phosphorus loads can go to lakes. And because the lake is limited by phosphorus, you have algae and plant growth that can increase because of that. So the next linkage is as that decomposes, often in the deep part of the lake, the bacteria that decomposes it, it sucks the oxygen out of the water. So essentially, as it decomposes, the oxygen concentrations become lower, and that's often happening in the lower part of the lake. And so you kind of have a building effect where oxygen becomes lower, and then you can have more nutrients come out of the sediment because of that redox. So that's the linkage that's of concern, that's of potential concern with waterfront development. But yeah, there's lots of things that waterfront owners can do. I think the number one thing that people can do is retain a natural shoreline buffer between their house and the lake. People like to have manicured green lawns, but on lakes, there's, you should retain it. It protects water quality from runoff. There's a lot of biological reasons to do that too, ecology reasons. But yeah, primary one is to improve water quality. It also keeps geese off your lawn. Geese are a major nutrient source to lakes that people often complain about. But if you have a natural shoreline buffer, they do not come on manicured. They don't come on the lawn nearly as much as a manicured lawn. We can make sure septics are built to Ontario Building Code standards and maintained properly. So those are the two main ones. If there's active work being done, erosion and sediment control is really important as well, just to make sure that we don't have a lot of sediment-laden runoff going into the lake. So those would be some of the top ones that I could recommend.
Perfect. So just to make sure I'm understanding, maybe I'll just provide an example. Councillor Brumbad owns a home on Nelly Lake who has 4 children, 2 grandchildren, all come spend the summer with him inside of a home, utilizing septic, et cetera, et cetera. I'm his neighbor. I have a camper, and I take my sewage away to a approved dumping site. Those two things are not one or more impacting these numbers one another because one lives in a trailer.
Yeah, there's a larger load for the residents in the trailer.
Thank you.
It's quite a bit higher in the assessment handbook.
Thank you.
Any other comment? Councilor LaFleur.
Couple of questions. Water quality data, when the Setchi disc depths were measured in 2005, again in 2024. Is there any noted difference between those two readings or those?
No, well, here they were a little bit higher when we measured them in 2025 than they were historically. They were 3.7 meters previously, and we found them to be 4.3 meters. So I don't know if that, again, not enough data to say if that's a real change in water clarity over that time, or there just isn't enough data to compare.
And the oxygen profiles from 2017 compared to what they are today?
Again, not collected at the same time of year. So difficult to compare. In 2017, they were in April and July, and we collected them in September because that's when the province says you have to collect them to inform the capacity assessment between August and September 15th.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions? Brian, would you like to add anything or?
Through your worship, no, council, thank you very much for your questions for Brent, and Brent, thank you very much for presenting your report tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks, Brian. Thank you.
Take care.
If there's any final comments from anybody? Councillor Bernier?
Thank you, worship. This time I'd like to touch on a few items as reference to the March 19th meeting of this year, when I brought forward a proposal to amend the official plan and the town's bylaws regarding camping in R1 zone areas, specifically the 14-day restriction. I would like to remind council and the members of the community of what was being requested and how it aligns exactly with the information we received today. My request was not to begin a process that would allow my request was to begin the process that would allow existing campers, many of whom have occupied their sites for years, and in some cases decades, the ability to remain where they are. As Northern Ontario residents, we often state that camping is one of our greatest natural assets and attractions, and this proposal was intended to respect that reality while ensuring responsible stewardship. Over the past 9 months, we have completed our due diligence as council with the help of staff. We have consistently consulted on the process. The expert opinion of J.L. Richards, the community has been advised of the current regulations, and where contraventions existed, educational notices were issued to RV owners regarding non-compliance. All of this occurred while we navigated to engage, complete, and now the results of Lakeshore Capacity Assessment conducted by Hutchison Environmental. As we have just heard, the assessment concludes that the lake is high in terms of capacity for future development. However, it is important to return to primary concern raised by the majority of those whom objected the bylaw amendment on March 19th. Namely, water quality. The environmental assessment clearly highlights that measures water quality data indicates the lake currently has good water quality. Therefore, at this time, Mr. Mayor, I would like to put forward, if it's appropriate or needed, a motion requesting that staff develop an annual licensing fee structuring to permit camping in RR1 zone lands within the town of Iroquois Falls. And I'd like to remind at this time that this is not just an Nelly Lake issue, it's a town of Iroquois Falls issue. This would allow existing campers to continue using their sites, provided they can demonstrate compliance with all criteria established through the licensing process on an annual basis. Including in the development of this license structure should be the next steps component of the Hutchison environmental assessment, as well as the information and recommendations brought forward by JL Richards regarding the licensing framework. The structure should also include clear requirements for the proper storage and disposal of sewage waste, along with any additional fees, conditions, or measurements staffs deem necessary through their research. I respectfully ask that this be brought back to council early in the new year for consideration and voting. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I don't believe we need a motion, Brian, because we talked about that earlier, but go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, through your worship, and thank you, Councillor Bernier. Just for you, your worship and council, just want to comment only for a point of clarity on this. And it ironically enough, it kind of does align with next steps logistically. So just as a reminder for mayor and council, in, I believe around the springtime approximately, I don't have the date in front of me, but I do have the directive. So council did provide staff with direction to essentially do just that, Councillor Bernier, among other things. So there were 7 directives that council gave to staff in the fall, and the very first one was proceeding with the lake capacity assessment, which has been done. The next one was continue to consult with the MOE, MNR, Conservation and Parks, the health unit as we work through this process, as staff continues to work with their consultants to ultimately draft in conjunction, whether that's from the consultant or staff, a recommendation, which absolutely does include as one of the points, a draft licensing bylaw. So of course, council can choose to go whatever direction they wish with a motion. I just wanted to again provide that point of clarity that already was a passed a motion tabled and passed, obviously for direction that staff does look forward to bringing forward in the new year. So I just want to point that out for clarity. Back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Vernon.
Thank you, worship, and thank you for the clarification, Brian. And I guess seeing that I was motioning, I'm fine with holding off and continuing with the motion that's underway, so long as it is underway, and I'm hearing that it is. So I do recall this happening. I just want to make sure the wheels are in motion here for us to be able to get through a resolution of this before the next summer.
Yeah. We'll go with
I just want to bring people's attention to the executive summary. In the second paragraph, the last line states, recreation capacity also indicates that the lake is extremely crowded and over capacity. Moving on to the next paragraph, it says that a blue-green algae bloom was, however, noted on August 17th of 2023. Blue-green algae is toxic. It can also shut down swimming in any kind of recreational lake. So these are things that we have to consider. Although we get a statement that our water is relatively clean, that's good, but relative to what? So you're talking about, for example, the oxygen content or the dissolved oxygen content. I would have to assume, and again, I'm not the expert on this certainly, but the lake trout requirements are for 7 milligrams per liter, I think is what it is. And we're well below that. And I would have to assume that the ministry did not put lake trout in that lake at the level that it is now. And I think that's only a logical extension. So do they have numbers that can verify that? I don't know, but it's something that we need to look at. And of course, the last paragraph under executive summary is pretty clear, this idea of best management practices, and it's something that I think that the town is going to look at, and through our bylaw and our own expertise as we develop this expertise, because this is all new to not only the council but certainly to our staff. So I think it's going to be, it's certainly going to be something that we're going to have to look at, because the way I see it, and I'm sure the people who reside out there, whether permanently or in cottages, they want to make sure that the water quality remains as good as it is today, and do everything we can to make sure we mitigate any future potential for making it worse than what it is now. However, having said that, this whole discussion that started a year and a half ago almost now created a lot of derision and conflict in the community, and that's unfortunate. However, a lot of it was, a lot of the concerns that were raised were with regards to water quality, overcrowding, and the fact that bylaws were being breached, clearly being breached. So these are all considerations that we're going to have to talk about as we go forward.
Thank you. Councilor Jiguer.
There's two notes through you. One for when was the last time the lake was stocked? I know through the LCC we get an annual report, so we should have one. I'll look. I have a meeting there this week, so I'll ask them to send that back. But it's for sure in our minutes somewhere. Second thing is, if I read this correctly tonight, the last time the ministry did their testing was in 2017, and I won't get into it tonight, but we did quite a bit of work there, and lowered, the water there through an emergency. And with them not doing any testing before doing that and or after, we don't really know even if the ministry have negatively impacted that lake since doing that. That's alarming for me as well. I'll just leave that down for now.
Any other councilors? Okay, at this time, we'll take a 5-minute recess, and then we'll come back and do the budget process. So we're gonna go into budget, and I'm gonna turn over to our CEO, Brian Pimms.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before we, to Mayor and Council, before we dive into our continued review, question period and presentation, I just wanted to go over a couple of housekeeping items, some logistical information, a couple additions to the budget that we've made, so you're fully aware and can see them firsthand as per our last discussion. And then what we're going to do tonight, what I'm hoping we can do through facilitation, is essentially each department head is going to run through very high level, just a little high level update per their department. Okay, so council is very well aware. If something wasn't discussed or came up last meeting, I just want to make sure that it gets touched on tonight. Each department head can give a little bit of an update. And then we certainly look forward to open up the floor to any question. The only thing I'll ask is if we can do our best, fully appreciate if we miss questions. If we can try and do our best to ask questions per the department after they give their update, just so it kind of stays on task and we're not jumping everywhere. But no worries if we forget a question or think of something after, of course, as you guys all have the floor. So without that, I just kind of want to start by giving a little bit of logistical update from Mayor and Council, so we're all on the same page with regards to where we're at today and the next steps within the budget. So logistically, we continue to be in our 30-day review period of what's now called, as we're all aware, the mayor's budget. That 30-day period officially, and we confirm this, officially started November 20th when the first proposed budget was sent out to mayor, council, and subsequently in the community. That takes us to the 30-day period to December 20th, where council can continue to review, ask questions along with the mayor to make any proposed amendments to the budget. For example, after discussion tonight, if mayor or council feel they want to make a change to the budget, logistically, they would table that, and that would have to happen per resolution around the council table. Is everyone on the same page there? Does everyone understand that? In terms of if following this meeting, I just want to touch on this, keeping in mind that 30-day time frame. If they feel they want to make an amendment following this meeting, they again have to table a motion, and that change has to come at a resolution. So it would have to take place at a special meeting of the council. And that would have to be obviously scheduled accordingly. We are going to obviously go through the entire budget tonight. If people have questions, if council has questions, we hope to address them tonight. Does anyone have questions regarding that process right there and procedure? Okay, thank you. So in terms of logistically, with any additions to the budget, you will notice that following that the good discussion we had last meeting, there was a couple, there was one capital item mentioned that was added with regards to the baseball field rehabilitation. And the other thing we noted just logistically is we did a little bit of category alignment with the Monteith Road remediation. We aligned the $17 million that was originally under other. It is now categories under grant, which is more indicative of how the money is flowing. With that, at this point, look forward to turning over to department heads to give a little bit of a high level update on the budget. And we look forward to taking questions as we go. I will turn it over to Marie to begin talking about administration.
Thank you, Brett. And through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll start with the administration budget, which begins on page 13. You'll notice we numbered the budget pages at the bottom. So begin that high level, just wanted to note that salaries for mayor and council remain the same. That's at $90,000 per year collectively. There's an increase to training and development. So this will allow for training for the onboarding council following the 2026 election in October. In line with that as well, there was an increase to computer services. So by 2026, many of the council devices will have reached their end of life. So we've allocated funds for this where devices can be refurbished and redistributed. That will definitely occur. You'll note for the municipal grant, that has increased. So for accounting purposes, all in-kind donations will be allocated to this grant. So this went from 5,000 to 10,000. There's an additional 4,000 on this. We previously passed a bylaw for a bursary policy where we allocated $2,000 to each high school. So that's where that additional $4,000 came from. Other changes to the administration operating budget includes a wage allocation for a position in human resources and health and safety coordinator. So this wage would be absorbed across the board by all departments. Staff are experiencing a gap in this area for recruitment, employee relations, policy review, development, and disability management. So they all require attention. So this dedicated individual would ensure compliance, manage hazards, and protect staff for that too. So I'd be happy to take any questions.
Any comments or questions from council? Councilor LaFave.
I know I mentioned it earlier this fall, but I see that the first line on salaries are basically flatlined until the end of 2028. I've got a problem with that. 3 years ago, after the last election, when it was recommended that the council should get a raise, and that wasn't part of the platform, certainly going into the elections. Albeit I think it was well deserved. That's not my point. But locking it in for another, in this case, another 8 years, it's going to become a problem again in the future where I don't believe that you're gonna be able to attract decent people to come and sit around this table and spend all the hours that they do. I did propose something earlier with regards to, even if it's as basic as a CPI, Consumer Price Index increases on an annual basis, and then adjusted, maybe before the next election, as we would be doing today, so that it isn't, how would I say, hung on the next council coming in, saying, well, you're just padding your own nest. So I would recommend that we at least go to the CPI, and go from there. If that's amenable to council.
Any further discussion on that? Councilor?
So would we not have to revise the current bylaw that's already in place on when we review that to make that adjustment?
Okay, Brian?
And I just want to, just a quick point of clarity, just because it was referenced, Councilor Fave, you mentioned the subsequent years. Just a reminder that last year we focused on a multiple year operating proposed budget. So the 2027 and 28 certainly are proposed. They're not in stone. Obviously, we'd be, for this year, we'd be officially adopting the 2026 budget. So in terms of those numbers, 2027, 2028, that is not what we'd be adopting tonight in terms of the actual. So I just want to.
No,
Okay.
I think I understand that. And I do understand the dilemma, because we're really not going to be paying anything out until, let's say, if it was approved, till December of 2026, right? No, so,
27.
no. If
January
if what
2027.
if what I'm suggesting is that there be an increase for 2026, that would not kick in necessarily, in my opinion, until the end of the year. For the next council.
So that would have.
As opposed to being now, or like, I'm happy with what we're getting now, because that's what was envisioned when it was set up 3 years ago.
So in the budget, we wouldn't leave anything.
Well, you could easily just add whatever whatever it is, 2 or 3%.
The new council doesn't take effect until the first meeting in December, I believe, right?
Right, and they would be in for a bit of a raise.
So they get in, they can start getting paid into the January of that next year. So really, you wouldn't capture it in this budget, but you can bring it to a council meeting
And raise it then.
and raise it then, I'm assuming. Am I correct, Brian?
Is it something that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it wouldn't be
And-
discussed during the budget, because we're not increasing the budget, because it wouldn't take effect until the January after their first paycheck.
But then, okay.
But you can bring it up.
But then my issue with that is it's still going to be looking like the new council just voted themselves in
No,
another.
I'm not saying that. I say you can bring it up in the new year
Mhm.
at a council meeting
I
to
see.
take care of
Okay.
it, but it's not part of the
I
budget.
can manage that, yeah.
Councilor Bernier?
Well, I just want to second what Councillor Jiguer said. I believe it has to be adopted through a bylaw amendment. So we can adopt that, this council in January, or February at one of the meetings prior to the next election.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Just to add, and if there's context to bring in the new year regarding that specific item, Councilor Fave, we'll review past discussion as well and make sure if there is an alignment there with your perspective, we'll certainly bring it forward.
Any comments or questions on administration? Councilor Jiguer?
New staff, so are we proposing here that we increase to another staff member to oversee different functions for every department?
The administration?
Yeah, if I may through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct. So this would be Human Resources, Health and Safety Coordinator. However, as I noted, this staff wage would be absorbed by all departments. So this staff member would not solely be with administration, but assist with every department across the board.
Be providing service to all departments.
Correct.
Any more comments, Councilor Jiguer?
I'll say a comment, it won't be a popular one, but without more content, I have a hard time supporting increasing staff. Again, I know regulatory things are changing and there's more paperwork to do now than ever, but we haven't had significant growth in our community I don't think to warrant another position. I know we've added some people on the public works side at the supervisory level, and we're trying to build a planning department, and you know, it's 2-3 people here, 2-3 people here, and then here's another person. I'm just, without having the content and the background on exactly how this person day to day and how everything else is being managed, I have a hard time to support another position.
Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, and thank you for the perspective, Councillor Jiguer. Our perspective on this is really bridging the gap and really from a health and safety perspective as a health and safety coordinator and taking the lead on all of that. So executing health and safety plans, meetings, protocols throughout all departments. And we feel there's a gap there from a health and safety side. We feel there's a gap there from a human resources side as well. They would play a role in all department hiring. They would play a role from a health and safety and coordinating planned, whether it's evacuations, protocols, drills. They're leading that category in the municipality. We see it ultimately as a risk management opportunity to bridge that gap. That's our perspective. We've identified those gaps. Right now, it's falling within each department, and we think we can do a better job there. We've tried to align ourselves, from a best practice. We see that as a best practice. It's a coordinator level position that we feel can be a full-time requirement. We really do approach everything from a fiscal responsibility side of things, but also from a service excellence standpoint. And we feel with the gaps there, we that's why we're doing a shared services. That's why we're not approaching this as two positions. We think we can fit this as one position under one umbrella. Joel, is there anything you want to add there?
Like it would just be to support or to magnify the gap. I think that everybody's plate is full. I completely understand the take, and especially, first thing you said is without more context there. So we take that as a potential task. We can certainly show and justify the need not only in building and revising existing and old policies, including the HS manual as a whole. But like you said yourself, the requirements and the regulations are changing, and we see a sharp increase there, and there are significant gaps within the corporation.
Councillor Brumback.
I would just like to say, adding HR with the operations and staff added into our municipality, I believe it's near half an hour to have HR representative that represents our town. And I have seen in my experience many smaller companies or organizations having HR representative representing their companies. So I'm in support of that.
Okay. Councillor Shalbaugh first.
Thank you, Your Worship. As the liaison to administration, I guess I've had the opportunity to have a little deeper conversations with members of administration about the need for to fill this gap for human resources and health and safety. Perhaps if it could be done just to sell it a little bit more, would be to point out or compare. Would it be practical, for example, to have it the position, contracted position versus in-house? And other than practical considerations, whether there be a cost savings or not. Because if it's needed, we could look possibly at contracting, but it's not always feasible, and it doesn't always make the most sense economically. But I think there's a couple of points that could be brought to the table.
So on that, Councillor Shalbaugh, are you recommending you keep it in the budget but bring it back to council to look at the option, or?
I think we keep it in the budget. Again, I'm privy to a little more information than most of my colleagues, but perhaps bring a little more information to the table to do a bit more of a persuading job.
Before I go to Councillor Jiguer, any other councillors would like to speak on it? Councillor LaFleur.
Personally, I think there's a big need for human resources services. I can also think about some of the archives that we have down in the basement that are stacked to the ceiling that probably need some serious attention, possibly even digitizing a bunch of that stuff that we've had, history sitting in boxes, which is terrible, quite frankly. I'm not in favor of contracted position for a situation like this. I think admin has identified a need. I don't think that they'd be going out on a limb and, just because we want another body so we can have coffee with in the morning. I think there's some good rationale there. If it's in the budget, at least we can decide on what that position is going to look like and what the job description is going to be. So I would certainly support it remaining in the budget as is.
Councilor Jiguer, Councilor Trombley.
Thank you. I'll agree with Councilor Jiguer because when we're out in public, that's the question we get asked. How come you're hiring another firm? So if we had a little bit more information, thanks to Joel or whoever, that'd be nice for us.
But are you saying we keep it in the budget and then push back to council? Not to put you on the spot, but we're just trying to get at where we're going with this.
Well, it seems as though staff says we need it, but all we wanted just a bit more information for we're out in public. So I'd say keep it in the budget, but give us some more information so that we can answer to these people or whoever's asking.
Councilor Jiguer.
I'll just finish with one last comment, and I won't harp on it anymore because we don't have more content than we have. HR representative is what Councilor Brumback refers to, but if we're going to hire a coordinator, I don't see that being in a manager's role to where they're actually going to be dealing with the HR side of things. They might be doing paperwork side of things, but actually dealing with employee matters, I don't see the coordinator. If it's a coordinator position, I don't see that happening. In my personal experience, when we take health and safety out of department head and supervisor roles, and we have joint health and safety committees, and the more people if we enter one individual to oversee the health and safety, they take on a bigger role. And more often than not, you see your frontline supervisors and department heads kind of shy away and go, someone else is doing that now. When health and safety should be everyone's job. And through your health and safety committee, things should be able to get accomplished. If we have a problem with backlog and old archives and certain things that we feel like we can't get to because they've been left for too long, well, that's one thing. But to convince me that there's a full-time position for the next 25 years above and beyond our lead hand supervisor, department heads and whatnot in committees, I have a hard time seeing.
I'll ask a question. You want to keep in the budget, or you'd like to make a motion to take it out, or just leave it and get more information, or go ahead.
I would like to have more information before the actual job would go out.
So you're okay with keeping
I'm
it in the
okay to
budget?
keep it in the budget
Okay.
as long as we get more information back on how this is all going to fit in, so that, if we understand it, it's much easier to tell our residents what we're doing.
Thank you for your concern. Any other comments on that one? Any other comments on administration? Okay, what department do you want to go to next?
We're gonna go to finance and treasury if they want to give any high level updates for your department. If there's nothing to add, Kevin,
Thank you.
What page would that be on?
you're going to the next page, so page 16.
For the expense side, there is nothing to speak on. When we get to the revenue, then we may have something to say.
So any questions on finance? Councilor Shuttleworth?
I think I may have asked this last time, but I'm looking at 2024 actual wages, 1,056. 880,000 for 2025, then we're dropping down to 517 for 2026, and it pretty well flat lines or almost. That's half of what the 2024. So I think it was explained that might have been a little bit of reappropriation of expenses.
Your worship, and thank you very much for the context and the question, Councilor Charlebois. You're absolutely right. I'll use the same term for appropriation. We simply separated finance and treasury and administration this year in the budget.
Any other comments from the finance department? Okay, so we're on the fire department now.
Yeah. Chief, did you want to get fire services?
Wages are pretty much the same. We just added roughly 3.2%, I think, moving forward. And then the rest of it's all operation stuff. So if there's questions or.
Any comments or questions for the fire department? At the end, so move on to the next department, protection services. Aaron?
Yeah, I mean, with ours, as far as building's concerned, it stayed pretty well consistent for wages and whatnot. By law enforcement, there's a little bit of an increase, but that's to accommodate the 4-person complement that was originally approved a while back for that department, to potentially put in a non-union position for by law enforcement to better align with adjusting and bringing the bylaws and whatnot up to date. And potentially put with building aspect, it's putting a building inspector back in the seat. Take a little bit of the load off. Aside from that, everything's pretty well consistent. Planning did drop. But the reason behind that is because in the planning department, we're actually, with myself taking the planning courses and training now, we're hoping to get more of that handled in-house and reduce our overall expenditures for that.
Any comments or questions for Aaron? I see none. So go on to transportation. I'll go with Steve, please.
Thank you, your worship. So my section starts on page 23 for those who want to look at the document as well. So in Public Works, the department maintains a pretty consistent budget with prior years, aside for a couple of increases in personnel. So I talked about it last meeting. In the Waterworks department, we're looking to increase staffing complement for a couple of reasons. The workload has definitely increased over the years, whereas prior, we never had any complement increase when we took over the waste plant from Aqua. And since that, we've also taken on hydrant maintenance and snow removal. So along with a couple of senior staff that have a lot of vacation, and we've historically had people on sick leave, that department is left very short, and we're trying to shore that up to have more manpower to address additional ministry requirements as well. So as far as water department goes, we have a DWQMS, which is a water quality management system audit every year, which is very intense. That is also coming into wastewater in the next couple of years, where we're going to have the requirements to do audits and have a quality management system on the waste side of things. So that's the first increase for waterworks and wastewater. The other budgetary increase for personnel would be the airport. So prior, we used to have, correct me if I'm wrong, but we used to have one of our managers do a lot of the daily tasks out there, and he did them to the point where he could handle whatever he could handle and didn't necessarily get everything done that was required. So he did it to the best of his ability based on his hours of work. And what we've noticed from the last year's trial is we've had a casual employee doing approximately 4 hours per day out there, just doing the regular runway checks, snow removal in front of doors, repairing lights. And this is not just a daily thing. This a 5-day a week. It's actually become a 7-day a week thing, because for the simple reason, and it doesn't have to continue that way, but for the level of service we have right now, if Air Orange calls, they'll literally call the casual employee and he'll go and do a runway check before they land, so they could land and take off. So we've identified that this would be done as a group effort. So what we're asking for here in regards to a complement increase would be an additional person in the Public Works complement. We would train 3 or 4 people on how to do all of the tasks. And because we have a 7-day coverage in the winter, we'd have people rotate through the airport, do the runway checks after they do the highway patrols, and have that covered as part of their task as an operator in highway maintenance and the daily highway checks. So it would just be added to the operator's tasks. And we'd have, like I said, we have 7-day coverage for that now because of highway maintenance minimum standards. So that's the ask in regards to manpower for waterworks and for the airport, which would be a complement increase in the public works department. Other than that, my GL codes are pretty static. You have a couple increases in regards to dust control because of the cost of calcium. Liquid calcium has gone up. It went up, I think close to 25% this year. And a couple other GLs, the culverts. We've had some emergency repairs over the years, and we see that uptick every year in regards to rentals for excavators because our backhoe doesn't have the reach, so we have to hire contractors, and that increase in culvert replacements for the ones that are at depth are quite expensive to replace. So the excavation and the contract services is what has increased in that GL. But other than that, it's been pretty static. In regards to the hydrants, Councillor Charlevoix from last time, and we discussed it with Holly and Corbina, and that was a typo. It was missed. There was information that was incorrect there.
Good. Okay. Comments or questions? Councillor Bernie, I believe, has a.
I just want to ensure, so the additional personnel for the sake of the airport position, we're adding one extra person to your public works. Who would then, like, outside of those 4 hours, they're just slotting right into daily jobs with public works?
That's correct. Thank you for the question. That's correct partially. However, it would depend on the day. So it would generally it would be 4 hours, but if EMS calls, then the guy just goes and takes care of what's needed out there. But he would typically be out there when required for emergency services, but on a daily basis would be as required basis for sure.
Yes, so I guess I should ask the question as being outside of what is necessary at the airport, as an additional person to help you with your regular day-to-day stuff. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Jiguer.
When Orange calls, how long do you have to actually get there and tell them yay or nay or?
They're pretty good at scheduling because these when they come in with the plane, it's not usually an emergency. It's a scheduled emergency call where they decide if they're going to land in Timmins, and then they're going to get a transfer car to bring them to Timmins. So there is a window there, like 20 minutes, half an hour before they make a decision whether they're landing or going to Timmins.
So we would be looking at adding one full-time complement unionized position.
Correct.
And then incorporate that into the
whole public works.
Yeah.
1, 2.
Okay. Joel, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just as to add a little context to the airport, when I came back and we took over the airport operations there's also, like, when Steve's talking about the 4 hours per day, that's a prescribed set of tasks. There's other things like grass cutting that Public Works is now doing in-house. There's like fence maintenance, brushing of the property. There's other things. We're investing so much into the airport. There's other things that need to be done that haven't been captured yet. The last year has really identified a larger scope of operational needs out there, and we're trying to not shoot the moon and be reasonable, but there's also some of those additional tasks as well.
Yeah, like 4 hours is kind of just scratches the surface. They're doing minimum maintenance out there, just enough to have access to the terminal for the pilots and make sure there's no snow around the fuel tanks that we have now at the airport. And like Joel says, we're doing the brushing at the airport now instead of having Loach do it, which was costing us a yearly contractor service. And we're also hoping to decrease snow removal reliance. I mean, it's not going to go away 100% because highways in town are our priority. However, I think we could probably attain that within a shorter window and have the airport back up and operational in a day and a half rather than sometimes 3 or 4 days now.
I'm done with the orange. Thank you very much for that explanation. The only other thing is I remember going to a meeting a little while back with the Area 1 farming, and we started talking about Glen Rose, and they were supposed to invest some money in tree lines. And I'm not sure about all of our roads, but I'm on the back road of River Falls where we're about to spend and get grants for millions and millions of dollars. And that road there, I'll say, is probably drifted over every day. It doesn't even have to snow. and it's being drifted over. So if, you know, if we're spending millions of dollars in funding and capital, how are those conversations going with Area One on putting up some natural windbreaks?
Go ahead.
Thanks for the question. So that's a good question. We have had several positive conversations with the cash crop farmers. The other element are the Mennonites. We haven't really had conversations with them yet. Myself, I have not. So as far as windbreaks and mitigating drifting, we won't be able to tell for a couple of years whether what they've done is going to help. Moving forward with buffers and that, I think that's going to be very telling to have buffer bylaws that are, you know, that are going to work for us. However, they have planted rows of trees on certain areas, but they did that in the fall. And so we won't be able to tell until, I'd say, probably 2 or 3 winters from now, whether that's going to gain any ground in regards to growth. But along the areas that we have concerns with, municipal, Moffett Road, Park and Plummer, they've done some tree planting for us along some areas on Monteith Road as well. So I'm hopeful that it'll help, but yeah, I'm still skeptical.
We had a few meetings with them. Go ahead.
And just to touch on the Mennonite community, I actually had a meeting this week with the 2 beacons. So if you want after, I can share some information with you or set something up so that you can get engaged with that.
Sure. That'd be appreciated. Thank you.
Any other comments on Public Works? Okay. So go on to Health Services. Would be Brian, want to speak on that or?
Yeah, there's nothing really to add there since the last meeting in terms of, I mean, obviously, physician recruitment's a big part of that as we work through that process. But I have nothing to report there.
We want the Recreation Department, Steve. Roger?
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Recreation and some of those community or cultural services commence on page 43 of the budget document. In general, pleased to report we really don't have a whole lot of change when you look at you know, the recreation and including our parks. We've all status quo from what we were last year with, in general, some regular inflationary indexes that you would see, you know, in terms of wages and utilities, being hydro and natural gas. Those, of course, are more specific to the recreation complex. As noted at the previous meeting, we do have an increase where we see more around special events. In 2025, we hosted Indigenous Peoples Day. We also hosted a Truth and Reconciliation event. Neither of these were actually truly budgeted events, but they came up upon us, and I like to think we did a fantastic job on hosting them. But now we're accounting for them, you know, so we're seeing that there. And again, not exactly a guarantee that we're going to see them not the same way they were this year. We do hope to develop partnerships on that one, but that is one area where it was raised. And of course, at our former meeting, we also spoke to the with the band stage and actually having an opportunity to host music throughout the course of the summer. Again, we're not quite sure if that's what that's going to look like, if it's bi-weekly or every 3 weeks, you know, or once a month on having events at Edson Park. So there is actually an allocation there for that. When we move over into the actual recreation complex, again, we're not seeing anything jump out at us in the way of increases. One of the notable decreases might be with our ice resurfacer, which is waiting to be delivered. We're just waiting on a charger at the moment. That is our Zamboni is quite ready to come to us, but unfortunately we don't have a means to charge it. So, and that's not our responsibility. Zamboni's taking care of it, but we won't have any costs associated with propane moving forward. Yeah. At a previous meeting, Councillor Charlebois inquired about level of service for our farms. We're not getting the goats, but we are reflecting our wages as actuals going back to what they were in. So we do see a decrease there. We continue to apply for funding for our student wages, and we never really actually know where we get those dollars. But those numbers were true numbers, Councillor Charlebois, on what that spend may look like. We're necessarily looking at an increase in the complement, although we have applied for additional funding for students, and we'll see where we land on where we go on our Canada Summer Jobs. Staffing complements within the recreation department remain as they were over the past couple of years, and there's no real change over on there, although we have done some minor restructuring in a couple of positions, and we're going to continue to fine tune those and evaluate them as they go. But at the moment, there's no real plan, certainly not in 2025 to add any position that would not be funded in the way of a grant. Councillor Jiguer had asked a question about the ball diamond, and is that allocation sufficient for sand? Pleased to report that through that number came together through quotations from the supplier who we purchased those sands for from the very beginning, when we did that revitalization project back in mid, around that 2015 mark, 2014 mark. So those numbers are still good. Unfortunately, transportation was the highest cost at the time, and it remains the highest cost. No, we feel good with that number, or I feel good with that number based on what was removed from this fall, where we removed the grass from the infield and the grass that was around the perimeter of the Dedco. So on that one, we're good. I think one of the only other drops that we really see, administration had done some work with our phone service. So if any of the councillors had noticed, we had a decrease in our phone service. That was the fine work of Holly and their team and looking at a different phone service for us, which seemed a little bit of a reduction there. Someone else had asked me previously as well about seniors program. We have a grant on there, but there's no guarantee we continue to get that grant. We were fortunate in 2025, and those wages were completely recovered in terms of the coordinator and much of our our program administrators or leaders. So again, there is a small number that's included in there, but again, that's all based on the allocation to funding awards, and we're presently in the middle of another one right now. So a little bit of luck, we'll get there. Councillor Charlebois had also inquired about revenues. Those revenues, that increase that you had seen, across the board, again, goes back to the actuals from that 2024. We're not completely finished on 2025. We're feeling good on where our numbers are going. There always are variables. A long storm run into the playoffs would help. Short run where we don't see playoffs, we wouldn't quite see that, but our numbers we're confident on where we are in terms of revenues and the amount of tournaments that we historically host, plus the numbers that we're seeing in our minor hockey association and our special events that we host, and of course Ringetta as well. I think that's about all I have, but if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to.
Questions for Steve? We're good, okay. We'll go on to the planning and development. We'll turn it over to Aaron.
Yeah, thank you, your worship. Essentially with the planning, we do show the reduction, like I was saying, for the wages and stuff like that. We're primarily trying to get things in-house. It's going to take a bit of time, but we are working towards that end goal. That's why if you notice in there, there's also a reduction in contracting fees. We will still be using contracts for a short period of time, trying to get a little extra information expertise in the bigger projects. It'll be on a case-by-case basis, but we are moving essentially to get away from that in the future.
Any comments or questions for Aaron?
So what's the goal in terms of bodies? I know that we had budgeted for 4 in the department last year, if I'm not mistaken. We're still only 2.
As it stands right now, the goal moving forward is going to be putting out a posting for the non-union member for bylaw enforcement to assist in redeveloping and creating new bylaws. Because as we're all aware, there are some that are pretty well outdated that need a little bit of TLC, I guess. The other thing is going to be to get a building inspector back on force. And essentially to be able to hand over that workload so I can focus primarily on the new projects and whatnot that we have coming in.
So we're
still
potentially looking
4.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
Whether we achieve that or not, but we're budgeted for it, right?
Yeah, we do have, additionally, we've actually been talking with Smooth Rock Falls about overseeing their building in there as well. So we are looking at expanding into outlining municipalities as well. So that's something that's going to assist with the workload and the expenditures for the building officials.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other comments or questions for her? So on operations, is there any final questions on operations before we go into capital? Councilor Jiguer, then Councilor Shawball.
Not a question, but a comment, maybe more than a question. So it's hard to see high level here because when we're going by department, everyone except for rec, I think, is talking about adding a complement. Everyone's talking about adding something in this year's budget. You know, and so it's just like, it looks like big numbers. Like we could potentially right now be hiring 1, 2, 3, 4 people in 2026. More than what we've had in 2025. So without having a clear picture of who does what, it's very hard to sit here and for me to see the need of 4 full-time new bodies. The one in water with the regulations is probably the one that I can relate to the most, just as I'm starting to dabble in that a little bit more, but it would be really nice. I know we had asked for, you know, the hierarchy the one time and we got a, you know, a nice picture of who reported to who and who went where. Well, we're looking at implementing new staff and new roles. So it would be nice to see just where they fit into. We would actually go out and hire, you know, some of these individuals because it's hard to swallow all these new positions without having a clear view.
But in the meantime, you're able to keep it in the budget?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
So make sure, okay.
Yeah.
Councilor Shawball?
Thank you, Your Worship. I missed this until we moved on to another department, but on page 21, the policing contract, that's OPP. 2024 to 2025, we sustained a 40% increase in costs. And yes, in the subsequent years, including 2026, it's kind of like stable. I'm wondering, did we actually get notification of the invoice or the fees that are forthcoming already?
Turn that over to Clavina.
Yes, sir. We did get a confirmation, 1.2 mil. So that is the confirmation we have now. The actual cost is 1.4, but there is a I would say I don't want to use the word subsidy, but we have been told that not everything will be charged. So we are reserved for 1.2 for now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just thank you through your worship. Just a comment for Councilor Jiguer's comment. I believe, and Aaron or Joel can correct me, I believe it's only 3 new additional. Okay, because we already had a complement of 4 budgeted for within the planning and building and bylaw. Just a clarification.
Well, how is it even 3? We're only talking 2. One under
2
water.
2 under, I believe, jump in here, but I believe 2 under Public Works and then 1 for administration.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Councilor Brown.
Just like to make a comment, say thanks to the staff and about the context of adding more people. I agree with Councilor Jiguer, as well as I also understand that with what's going on in 2026, the more operations are coming underway, more work being done on airport, and to secure our investment and operations, it's feasible to have more people. I feel we don't want to dig the well when we need the water, right? So it's better to be prepared before, but again, like we need more context on what's gonna be doing what.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Okay, Councilor Bernier.
I could just touch on that as well, Your Worship. Thank you for the opportunity. I definitely see in a perfect world how some of these positions are necessary or struggle with the wording on this and I want to use appropriately, Your Worship, but I think my suggestion would be as we go through the hiring processes of some of these, and I know the ones in planning department were pre-approved, I believe, in last year's budget or through a motion last year. Just feel like every time we add a person or staff to the complement, whether it be at a management level or the employee or unionized positions. It's the first thing that get hit up on social media, on comments, in whether it be verbally in the public. And I think the wise move for us to do here is maybe to ask, again, not trying to add things to staff's plate, but as we come through these positions, as they're being hired in the process, even the ones where we're adding to Aaron's compliment, maybe just a blurb of some sort from staff where we can actually, whether it's put out or at least have the information for ourselves to be able to justify these. And I don't think anybody around the table is disagreeing with the fact that some staff somewhere are definitely needed to be added. It just, as we learn about the needs of this and as we go through the hiring process of this, if we can have some, a little bit of extended information through a blurb that we can either put out to the public, or because if I have to say, over the last 3.5 or 3 years that we've been on council, that is probably the number one topic we get hammered on. And as much as we want to have staffs back and understand, because we are privy to some information, or the day-to-day functionings of what goes on, it just helps us back that and just open public's eyes, right? We maintain that we want to be as transparent as possible, and we want to educate the community on what the needs are and why they're needed. And like I say, I definitely stand behind the fact that some of these positions are definitely much needed, and looking forward to get more information on what they'll be and who they'll be and stuff like that. But if we can ask for a little bit more information as we go through the process, just so we can continue to support.
Brian first.
Thank you very much for your worship and the respect. Look forward for Mayor and Council to providing as much context as possible. And I just want to be, you mentioned transparency, and that's really exactly what we're trying to do in this conversation is not have, we want to be an open and clear with everything we do, because it involves all of us. We want to be fruitful in our discussions, and we want to be able to provide that context, and we want to be able to invest in our team so we can put our best foot forward, provide a service excellent for our residents and our staff. So that's always our goal. We always look at every lens through fiscal responsibility, customer service, health and safety, risk mitigation, level of service. We feel this proposed complement allows us to meet those expectations. So we can offer that level of service that is expected, but by not just our staff, by council and by our residents. So that's the goal. That's what we're trying to do. We have a responsibility to be fiscally responsible within that, but also meet that level of service that's required for us to do our jobs in all those faucets. So
I'll let Councilor Brandback go first, and I'll speak.
I'd just like to add about the transparency that what I experienced through our staff. I don't know about the other departments, but I am in the bylaw Laja and also deputy Laja for public works. And because we are discussing the positions that are being hired or added into these departments, I had been asked by the staff heads and our CEO as well as a bylaw when they wanted to add new person to the department. Also, when Councillor Lafay was away and I was the deputy of public works, and when they needed to add somebody else, I was approached, called for a meeting, discussed about the positions. And we had a big meeting, if you remember, Ryan. And then I was also asked to join the interview, but my date and the meetings wouldn't match with my calendar, so I couldn't join. But I just like to let other councillors and the public know that I was asked, and it's being transparent if we are talking about transparency that way.
Yes. I hear what you guys are saying completely. I just want to throw this out there too, is that we got a lot of money coming our way. It's not just because we apply for a grant. There's a lot of work meetings to get the millions we're getting, right? So we're getting a lot of traction, but we're getting millions. Like Municipal Road, you got the Ambridge being done, you got Monteith Road, but it takes a lot of support from different people. And same as in the recreation department, rec department is applying for grants, and we got the events committee going. So it's just a little more HR and stuff like that does help. But at the end of the day, it is a council decision. We hear you clearly, and we'll bring more information before we proceed. Is that okay, Brian, to do that? Absolutely. Okay. Any other comments or questions on that part? Can we go in the capital now? Okay, Brian, I'll let you.
That's, you know what, capital is a little more fluid. At this time, look forward to taking questions from mayor and council.
So, we'll start to, Councilor Trombley, and we'll go around the table. If anybody wants a comment or anything.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Did anything change since the last meeting we had? Anything?
Just the ball field, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and through your worship, and thank you very much, Councillor Trombley. A couple modifications and additions for sure. You will see, and if you have specific questions following my response, look forward to turn it over to the department heads for more further information. But through discussion, there was a strong appetite to further support our baseball field. So you'll notice on cap 26 cap 05, we added additional funds to pardon me?
What page it is on?
05. Yeah. So we added additional funds to
Page 7.
support the conversation that took place at the council table last meeting to rehabilitate our ball field. Steve, do you want to add any context there?
Sure, thanks for the opportunity. Again, there was work being conducted on the parking lot itself. And the request was to, with the way of bleachers, a possible stage cover, and a little bit of fencing. We did have some dollars in our operating to look after some fencing. We're going to grow that program slightly. And yeah, this is the replacement of 4 bleachers. And our best case, estimate that we were able to retrieve for a potential stage cover to our bleacher cover to go over a couple of sections of the bleachers. Again, timing, difficult engineering. We looked at both on what we may be able to find on a prefab structure, steel structure, and what we were able to, pull together if we were to imagine one and have a manufacturer put that together for us, and the likes of a regional fabricator, let's say, in the lines of or for a machine company.
Okay, thank you. So we're gonna go around the table, Councilor 5, and then we'll go work our way around. We can come back, but
Yeah, I don't have anything else.
Well, I just wanted, for Councillor Trombley, we also did a reallocation for the Monteith Road 17 million.
Yeah, I see that.
Councillor, we moved it to grant, you'll notice that.
That's it. Thanks,
Okay.
Brian.
Joel?
And also an additional change to that Monteith Road capital item was the removal of if you look back at the previous submission, there was $1 million there under the town's I believe it was reserves. And what that is to cover the ineligible costs of that repair. So in Monteith, we'll have sidewalk, street lights, we'll have buried infrastructure, but we know for a fact that won't be spent next year. It'll be towards the tail end of the phases. And so we said, you know what, we'll remove it from this year's budget with the understanding that council will see that in future budgets.
Councilor 5?
I'm good.
Councilor Jiguer?
Thank you, worship. The SUV, is that for more just in town, or is that gonna be used when department heads go to conferences, and will give senior staff an opportunity when they're in town and they want to go to department, they'll use that vehicle there to go there.
Brian?
Thank you for your question, through your worship, Councillor Jiguer. The plan for that vehicle is all of the above, whenever needed, in town conferences, training, transportation, efficiencies, whatever, if for anything. It's not just a one vehicle transportation method in terms of going using it in town. We're happy to take it to conferences, happy to take it to training opportunities. If staff or Joel want to add to that, we certainly can.
That's perfect. That's more of a broader maybe comment here. So with this proposed budget, do we know approximately what we are taking out of reserve and what we're putting back And how much money are we actually using out of reserve to make this budget come?
Right. Thank you, Your Worship. I believe we're taking approximately $4.6 million out of reserves approximately, but I'm happy to turn it to our treasurer to elaborate on that.
Thank you. The revised, budget, Brian, you are right. We are taking 3.5, which is very close to 4 million that you mentioned.
Okay.
Yeah.
This time, I'll go around another time, but anything right now, or you continue?
That's good, Ollie.
You wait, you sure?
Yeah, go ahead.
Councillor Charlebois.
Very specific, Your Worship. I'm glad to see that there's maintenance being done on the just starting arena, especially the painting of the beams and whatnot. That's a gym. I don't think we could afford to rebuild another one like that if we had to, so we have to take care of it. I'm also pleased to see continuing upgrades on the waterworks.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Brambach?
Just a quick question about the reserve. The 3.5 mil we discussed that we're gonna pull it out from reserve. Is it against the grants or are we waiting on the grants? Like what number would it be after getting possible grants, or that's without grant?
Okay, Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, so that is separate from grants. Yes, so that, I mean, obviously you'll look in your capital sheet, you'll see a total cost of the capital budget. That total cost and also includes grant money coming in. So for example, you'll see that 17 million we're getting injected with. Yeah. We're very fortunate to get that. But it also, it's including their total costs. And we categorize, if you look at your capital budget line, we capitalize treasury, reserves, grant funding, and other. An example of other for everyone, that could be in a debenture, for example. But ultimately, that reserve money would be coming from our coffers, but it's not indicative of the total capital budget, because a lot of that capital funding is either through a debenture, either through a grant, or either through our treasury.
And at the same time, staff will be applying for grants. Also.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Covina, or they add anything to that?
Yes. I think that, I mean, everything has been said.
Yeah, you're good. Okay. Councillor Bernier?
Thank your worship. I don't have much to add, just maybe one question for Mr. Belanger in Recreation. So if we can go back to 26 Capital 5, am I understanding correctly that 350,000 gets us the work in the parking lot, work being done to the fencing, as well as the new bleacher accommodations that we had asked for? Correct. Thank you. I don't have anything else, your worship.
Okay, back on the capital, Councillor Jaguar, do you have anybody? Okay.
Just one comment. I've actually had 4 different residents ask me this, so I just, for a point of clarity.
Yeah.
When we talk about getting grants, right? We're not going out spending the money in hopes that the grant is coming. These are grants that have been approved, signed off, guaranteed that we are getting the funds, correct?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing I want to add to that, you may see allocations potentially or capital justification sheets where a project's required to move forward. A project will only move forward if we receive funding. Mm-hmm. That's the other side of it too.
Okay. That's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, that answers that question. And my last question is just about the budget in general. It's more of a comment than a question. Talked to quite a few members in our community that are frustrated right now. They don't believe that the process that we took was maybe the best one that we could have took, and having a survey go out and then having our budget and then having another survey, but not really giving people the opportunity to come here and voice their opinions on our actual budget. We didn't do that this year. We're asking people to always go through a form of the internet or to go through a form of writing. And that's not in some people's wheelhouse, right? Just like the surveys. I heard, we do surveys and then we capture information and we bring back a report to mayor and council. Are we getting all of the information back? Or did we get back what we thought was the relative to come back to mayor and council? So there are some frustrated people out there right now because they feel actually like we're going backwards, not forward. And that's the way that we're communicating and delivering our budgets. And if I wasn't sitting at this table, I could see how some of those, interpretations are happening because when do we have time to talk? When we go through the organizations coming here to tell us how much money they need to keep operating, I think if that's going to be the opportunity for everyone in town to come and give us what they believe should be in the budget, then we should have a draft budget done before that night.
Right. Anything to add?
Thank you through your worship and thank you for your perspective, Councillor Jiguer, and I certainly appreciate the feedback. I guess the only thing I'll comment is obviously this is the first year with this process, number one. Number two, categorically, we did more engagement this year than we've ever done. This is, we put out a survey before the budget. And we put out a survey or invited the community for comment after the budget as directed. And I'll get our clerk potentially to comment on that when we do. And your comment is well received in terms of your perspective. Allegations weren't, the budget was proposed before. We invite the community to provide their comments on the budget. It's not just community organizations. We do invite the public to come and speak on the budget process and any insight they may have for inclusion. So I don't know if you want to add any logistical points there, Maureen.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I'll just add, thank you, Brian, through you, Mr. Mayor, that delegations from the public, submissions from that can also always be received by staff to be brought forth for consideration on an agenda. So while we did put out a notice, inviting residents for delegations regarding the draft budget, these delegations can be accepted at any time.
And again, I don't want to take anything away from the work that the departments have done in getting the budget to where I don't want to sound negative in the process, but underneath this new process, there's some parts of it where it seems rushed a little bit, right? Once you start 30 days, the clock is ticking, right?
It's a provincial thing. We have to go with what
we're choosing to go. It's not have to. We're choosing to go with a strong mayor budget. That's a process that we don't have to do.
Okay, I'll turn to the clerk.
Just to provide clarity for that as well through you, Mr. Mayor, like the process, it's legislated, it's regulation 53022, so it is legislated under the Municipal Act. So generally municipalities do follow the act. And through that act, it does not say that this is optional for a mayor to follow this process. If you are designated a strong mayor municipality, then you should be following the process.
But if you didn't, then it reverts back to the old one, correctly?
If you did not, that's correct. However, like for any legislation with the Municipal Act, if you choose not to follow it, there isn't a repercussion for that.
Thank you.
Good.
Joelle?
I'm good.
Joelle, go ahead.
The act specifies an end date there, which is kind of end of March of that fiscal year.
Yeah, I just want to say, I don't know why certain council members get these people that are yipping in their ears all the time and complaining about the process. Personally, this is a new process this year. I agree. For the times that I've been on council for the last 5 years, we've had, I think this is the most transparent and open process that I've seen so far. I think it's a matter of continuously improving. However, comments from the community are welcome, but what we don't need is continuous ragging about us not being transparent, because I take exception to that. And I think that if any counselor is hearing this and not pushing back on those people, then I think we're failing council, because I think council and staff are doing a mighty fine job. There was, the opportunity to present, as was suggested earlier, on October the 6th. People had a chance to come here. They chose not to come here, and then they sit back in the brambles and take pot shots at what goes on. I don't think that's acceptable, and I think that we should communicate that very clearly. I would do it in a different way that's not as diplomatically as some people think, but I'm certainly prepared to push back if need be. On December the 4th in the Enterprise was a very good write-up on the process. I think that anybody that didn't read through that and have a look for themselves, I think it was on page 3, go back and get yourself an Enterprise and see what the survey process was all about. So that'd be my recommendation. That's my only comment that I have.
Any other comments on the capital budget? No? Okay. Well, I'd like to advise council that the 30-day amendment period to propose changes to the budget by resolution concludes on December the 20th. However, if council wishes to bring a motion to shorten this, they may do so. And I will also be issuing a mayor's decision confirming that I will not be vetoing any council amendments. We could potentially shorten this by 4 days, which will bring us to December the 16th. Seeing that I think we're all on page to move the budget, I won't veto nothing that was decided. And is council okay to make a motion that we shorten the period so we can get this process done? Is there a mover for that, or?
Does it make any difference?
Well,
20th is this Saturday.
Yeah, then you have to call a meeting.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, so if somebody does bring something, you're calling a meeting. So if you want to have another meeting where we can decide right here and get it done.
Let's get it done.
Okay, is there a
moved.
motion?
So
Motion, second, Councilor Brambach, Councilor LaFave will make the motion.
So this would be moved by Councillor LaFave, seconded by Councillor Brambach, that the amendments to the 2026 capital and operating budget be approved. And further, that the shortening of the time for the budget amendments be approved and shortened by 4 days, with the amendment period ending on December 16th, 2025.
All in favor?
I just have questions on the process if
Yeah.
possible. So you're saying that if we would leave this until the original date of the 20th,
Yeah.
we would then have to schedule another meeting to pass?
If somebody wants to make changes. Okay, go ahead, yeah, explain it.
Just and thank you very much for your question, Councilor Bernie, through your worship. The budget this year, there's no passing of the budget, okay? So
Only amendments.
The budget, once the review period is done, the budget is deemed to be adopted. That's the phrasing they're using. So the budget is adopted, okay? If a council wanted to make a change before the 20th, they have to table a motion to do so. Okay? Now, I believe what Mayor Deloria is suggesting is if everyone's happy with where the budget is now, shorten that period via resolution. So the budget by December 16th would then be adopted and the process is over.
So my question for you then, Mr. Mayor, is, and staff can obviously jump in to help answer here. If we were to leave to the original date, a member of the community can go in, or simply council?
Council.
Thank you. I just don't want to be seeming like we're taking away more
Oh, no.
opportunity from the community. There seems to be nothing at the table, then I won't give it.
Okay. Other question or comment? So all in favor? Carried.
now to the regular meeting.
Yeah. That was a good discussion.
Speed up now.
And moving to seconder. For the reports, Councilor Jiguer and Councilor LaFave.
Moved by Councillor Jiguer, seconded by Councillor LaFave, that the following reports are received as information: administration, finance, fire, planning, building, bylaw, public works, and recreation.
Any comments or questions? Councilor Bernier.
Thank you, worship. Just, I feel like it's the window of opportunity to say a little thank you to our department heads here for the work that's been done over the last year. It seems like maybe I'll start through the couple ones I want to highlight specifically. Director Belanger, the amount of capital projects that have been done, the work done on the arena and everything else on the rec center, the undertaking of the senior
Hub or whatever.
yeah, senior hub, senior
All
center,
that stuff.
the incoming of the splash pad. It seems like a tremendous amount, probably one of the biggest years we've had for capital projects and recreation. Holding that together through this last year has been incredible to watch. The upgrading to our facilities. Everybody knows that I hold the Judge Jordan Arena near and dear to my heart, and the work that's been put into that place over the last year is absolutely incredible. So hats off to you. Aaron, if I can add to yourself, I'm starting to see, obviously, I know there's a lot of help coming into a new position here. We're starting to see cleanups in the community. Things are happening in your department, so big congratulations to you as well. And to Mr. Pollock, it's the craziest amount of snow I've seen pre-December in a long time, and I think you're starting snow removal already before Christmas even happens. So good job by your team and continue the strong work. Other than that, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Councilor, anybody else? Councilor Jiguer, then Councilor LaPlante.
He just stole all my thunder.
No, wait a minute, Councilor
No,
Jiguer.
you go ahead.
Wait,
No,
okay.
no, you're good. Go ahead.
Then you can steal my thunder.
Yeah.
No,
I'll
I'm
just
actually ditto with whatever he said, and certainly I wanted to highlight all three departments. It's excellent work and admin for shepherding. So I think these reports speak for themselves as to the amount of work that's being done and the justification behind the work and why it's required. So I think congratulations to all three of those departments, and not taking anything away from the finance or finance.
No, absolutely.
Because everybody's doing an excellent job.
Yeah, go ahead, Councilor Jiguer.
Just if you're able to, Mr. Director of Recreation, there's still some nice big orange tarps up there at the front of the Judge Jordan Arena, and I know it's really not a regular time of year for us to be doing this work. Can you maybe just give us the 30-second version of what's going on over there?
Thank you for the opportunity of the question.
30 seconds.
In essence, we had a funding grant, and that work started with the cladding, changing out the cladding. When we opened up the cladding around the windows, there was considerable deterioration, rot of the framework that held the windows in place. In fact, that even spread to the columns that was in between the windows. Upon investigation and review of it, we went ahead here and we're going to replace all 9 windows, and we're rebuilding the framing at the bottom of the windows at this time. So we're not coming back into this and removing tin once again, to change it all out. The windows, I can only assure you that they're pre-2004, because that's about the time that I was here, and they were quite old. So again, it'll be sealed up properly, changing out the bottom of the frames, and they're not exactly the most sightly, and certainly this work wasn't planned to go this way, but when we're into it, we're going to complete it and get it done right.
Okay. You're welcome.
And also we look forward to bringing a report forward to council. These repairs are deemed emergency. And so we do look forward to bringing a report to council with a full disclosure of costs and associated items.
Any other comments?
Just one for the fire chief, real quick. Mandatory training for all of our volunteer firefighters. I know that date is getting closer and closer. Just looking for quick update from the chief on how we're doing that, to making sure that
we're actually in good shape because of the grandfather clause that came in years ago. So good 80% of our volunteers are already certified, and we're working on certification for the remainder of the volunteers. So we're in good shape. We will remain an interior attack fire department.
Great, thank you.
Nothing.
Anybody else? All in favor? Carried. Well, for information, for the budget timeline, we already went over that, but I'll get a mover and a seconder on that. Councilor Jiguer and Councilor Charlebois.
Moved by Councilor Jiguer, seconded by Councilor Charlebois, that the following is received as information: 2026 budget timelines.
All in favor? Carried. Full-time machine operator, can I get a mover and a second, please? Councilor Jiguer and Councilor Bernier.
Moved by Councillor Jiguer, seconded by Councillor Bernier, that the following is received as information, full-time machine operator.
Any comments or questions? Okay. All in favor? Oh, is there any, from staff, did they want to talk about that or anything to say? Sorry.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak in regards to this. Not much other than I think we're very lucky to receive this individual. He has 18 years of municipal experience and he was a lead hand and a spare supervisor. So he started today and we're very excited to have him on board.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. So Snowville Club has a request. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Councilor Jiguer. Councilor Charlebois.
Moved by Councillor Jiguer, seconded by Councillor Charlebois, that council approve a municipal grant in the amount of $1,380.60 to the Jack Pine Snowmobile Club for the 2025 season to directly support trail improvements, safety measures, and continued tourism development within the town of Oak Falls.
Comments or questions? Councilor Jiguer.
Thank you, Worship. Here's another group, that's bringing tourists to our downtown corridor. The one thing that's changed in the snowmobile life, I'll say, in the last couple of years, it's getting a lot harder for them to get trails approved with landowners and whatnot. And I know their costs have gone up quite a bit in rerouting trails and new signage. So I support this donation.
Okay, thank you. Any other comment? All in favor? Carried. So procedural bylaw, because we're moving our meetings from 6:30 to 6. So we're gonna be able to second for that. Councilor 5, Councilor Charlebois.
Moved by Councillor LaFive, seconded by Councillor Charlebois, that council proceed with an amendment of the procedural bylaw, specifically section 3.2, to reflect a meeting time of 6 p.m. through the execution of a bylaw.
Questions or comments? Councilor Jiguer.
So when we need to have a zoning or a planning meeting, are we gonna have those beforehand? So are we gonna start at 5:30 now for those meetings and then 6 o'clock for regular? Just a question.
Go ahead.
So if I may through you, Mayor Doherty, so typically we would have it prior because it would be easier to determine a time. So that meeting would be scheduled at 5:45.
Okay, thank you. So all in favor? Oh, whoa,
Hang on. Hang on a second. I thought we had this
We
discussion
did.
last year. And we decided that we were gonna start everything at 6:30.
No, we had I think you missed the last meeting.
Did I?
Yes, you're on holiday.
You had this discussion while I
Yes,
was
we
here.
did.
Well, good for you. Okay, I'll see if I can make the meeting at 5:45.
You were here, you said you were retired, so you could.
I said that, eh? I did not say that. I said we discussed the 6 o'clock time frame, not a 5:45. Let's go. Let's go.
Wasn't he?
Okay, so we're good.
Move on.
Yeah, that's the odd meeting, like.
Yeah.
Just go ahead.
Yes, so the
Yes,
regular council meetings, Councillor LaFive, will be at 6 p.m.
Yeah.
So the other one is the committee of adjustment. So those,
Which was slated when we had this discussion before, that it would start at the regular time. There was no need to start earlier. I remember that. Now, if you had another meeting where I wasn't present, that's a different story. I want to see the minutes. Just kidding.
Produce those.
Moving on.
Was I mistaken? I could be mistaken.
I don't.
Well,
Doesn't show it to me.
If you want to proceed on that conversation, I'm open to that.
Well, I'm pretty sure that was the discussion that we had. Now, again, if you met when I wasn't here, that's a different
No, I
story.
thought you were talking about the 6 o'clock meeting, so I misspoke. So can we continue it at 6 and just start the meeting at 6 or?
well, we have a meeting schedule that has to be
Yeah.
produced prior to January
Yeah.
to the public. And that's as per our procedural bylaw too. So in that schedule, we have to say the time of the meeting.
That's right. So we have to put that out to the public.
However, committee of adjustment meetings are not on a regular basis. We haven't.
And it's about 15 minutes. It'll be at 5:45. So
Yes.
are we okay?
Correct.
Heard my objection, you just go ahead and do whatever the hell you want.
That's right, that's right. So we're all good to vote?
Sorry for asking the question.
Okay, so all in favor? Carried. Thank you for the comments. Cost sharing with the MTO, can I get a mover and a seconder? Councilor Gare, Councilor Bernier,
So moved by Councillor Jiguer, seconded by Councillor Bernier, that council approve the execution of the cost sharing agreement with the Ministry of Transportation for the inclusion of municipal works in MTO contract 2026-5020. This is for Highway 67 Main Street rehabilitation at the ministry's estimated cost of $357,076.66 plus HST, with the understanding that the town will be invoiced for actual costs incurred, and further that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the agreement and submit all the required documentation to the ministry.
Joel, can you add anything to that?
Sure, through you. So the MTO scope of work would be the full remediation of the road surface, including the buried storm sewer that's underneath Main Street. The cost sharing agreement covers town costs there. So we're doing spot repairs, not dissimilarly to what we did on Ambridge, to the curb and sidewalk. And we are also looking to replace the entirety of the interlocking brick, with the exception of the intersections. The intersection interlocking bricks will be removed and replaced with standard asphalt.
Any comments or questions? Councilor Watt.
So this cost here, the 357, that's potentially our cost and might even be higher. This is our cost.
It is our cost, and there was a $400,000 allocation to the capital budget. We feel very comfortable that we'll fall within that.
Good. And they're covering the rest, right?
Yep.
Okay, all in favor? Great. Water and sewer rate, can I get moving a second, please? Councilor Tremblay and Councilor Charlebois.
Moved by Councillor Tremblay, seconded by Councillor Charlebois, that council adopt bylaw 386425 to gradually raise water and sewer charges through 2026 to 2030 to meet the financial requirements needed to renew the town's water license in 2031.
Comments or questions? All in favor? Carried. Go on to the next item, Buckingham. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Councilor LaFave and Councilor Jiguer.
Moved by Councillor LaFave, seconded by Councillor Jiguer, that council adopts bylaw number 386525 to authorize the long-term loan debenture facility to fund phase 2 of the Buckingham Avenue project.
Okay, any comments or questions? Councilor LaFave.
Just that, this work obviously is long overdue. A whole part of Erica Falls is the infrastructure is well over 100 years old. I think that the work that was done this past summer and the wrap up coming, we've actually saved a significant amount of money, if I'm not mistaken, on this, and we're getting the job done in 2 years instead of 3. So congratulations again to Public Works for making that happen. Good job.
Any other comments, questions? All in favor? Carried. So I need a mover and a seconder for municipal law enforcement officer. Councilor Brambat and Councilor Tremblay.
Moved by Councillor Brambat, seconded by Councillor Tremblay, that council appoint Piyush Kohli as a municipal law enforcement officer, provincial offenses officer, and property standards officer through the enactment of a bylaw.
Any comments or questions? Go ahead.
Just briefly, I believe this Piyush is doing an excellent job in the department, and he's actually, I think, finally putting his foot down and getting some work done in this community, cleaning it up, and I think there's a lot less parking on the streets in the winter time right now too, which is a good thing. Long overdue.
Good. Any other comments or questions? Would you like to say anything, Aaron?
I'd just like to say, I agree 100%. Thank you, your worship.
Okay.
He's doing a fantastic job. He's excelling with his training, and this is just something to reflect the additional qualifications he's picked up since he started here.
Amazing.
Great person.
Yeah.
All in favor? Carried. So gaming bylaw, can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Jiguer and Councillor Tremblay.
Moved by Councillor Jiguer, seconded by Councillor Tremblay. That council enact a deeming bylaw under section 54 of the Planning Act to deem 353 Ambridge Drive and 361 Ambridge Drive not to be within a registered plan of subdivision, and that the bylaw be brought forth for adoption.
Comments or questions? All in favor? Carried. Devonshire Park, can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Jiguer. Councillor LaFave.
By Councillor Jiguer, seconded by Councillor LaFave, that RFP 2025 Rec 03 Devonshire Park Consultation and Planning Service, including contract administration, be awarded to Trace Planning and Design, and further that staff are authorized to enter negotiations to award contract for a sum not to exceed $95,000, exclusive of taxes, and a 15% project contingency.
Would you like to add anything, Mr. Belanger?
Thanks for the opportunity. I'd like to think it's rather pretty straightforward on this one. This one is for the planning and consultation services of Devonshire Park. Obviously a large project that's going to have significant impacts on the community and the families who live here, and our recruiting efforts to continue to gather more. We all need to put our best foot forward on this project, and it's a very exciting one, and I'm really pleased to see Trace come into this picture. Trace Design's an absolute leader in urban planning, particularly when we look at parks and playgrounds, and they installed one of the very first splash pads in all of Canada and continued to do this kind of work. And for anyone who's familiar, localized, let's say, or regionally, they led the project in North Bay along the waterfront, which was new playground and all kinds of equipment there, and they're actively involved in the Steve Omichal Park project that's being conducted over there. That's going to see another recreation facility, and that kind of benefits us. These, although based in New Brunswick, they do have an office in Collingwood, but they are going to be in North Bay the next couple of years and very, very close to us. And that's fantastic. And they demonstrated an interest right from the get-go, and they visited the site on 2 occasions, and their experience and expertise is evident, and really excited to have them on board on this project.
Comments or questions? All in favor? Carried. So we're gonna move in a second for bylaw number 3863-25. Councillor Jiguer, you can put it on, please.
Moved by Councillor Jiguer, seconded by Councillor Tremblay, that bylaw number 3863-25, being a bylaw to establish rules of procedure, be read and passed this 15th day of December, 2025.
Any comments or questions? All in favor? Carried. Thank you, Councillor LaFave. So for the next one, I need to move in a seconder, bylaw number 3864-25. Councillor Charlebois and Councillor Jiguer.
Moved by Councillor Charlebois, seconded by Councillor Jiguer, that bylaw number 3864-25, being a bylaw to impose water and sewer service fees and charges, be read and passed this 15th day of December, 2025.
Comments or questions? All in favor? Carried. Bylaw number 3865-25. Can I get a move in a seconder? Councillor Jiguer, Councillor Bernier.
So moved by Councillor Jiguer, seconded by Councillor Bernier, that bylaw number 3865-25, being a bylaw to authorize the submission of an application to Ontario Infrastructure and Lands Corporation for financing of certain capital works of the Corporation of the Town of Arctic Falls, and to authorize long-term borrowing for Buckingham Avenue through the issue of debentures to the OILC, be read and passed this 15th day of December, 2025.
Comments or questions? All in favor? Carried. Bylaw number 3866-25. Can I get a move in a seconder, please? Councillor Tremblay and Councillor Five.
Moved by Councillor Tremblay, seconded by Councillor LaFive. That bylaw number 386625 being a bylaw to deem 353 Ambridge Drive and 361 Ambridge Drive of registered plan subdivision M3T be read and passed this 15th day of December 2025.
Comments or questions? All in favor? Carried. We'll move the correspondence. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Bernier?
Sorry if I may, Mayor.
Sorry, did I miss
We
something?
just missed the last bylaw, which is the appointment of Mr. Law.
I'm ahead of myself. So 386725 bylaw, can I get a mover and a seconder? Councillor Tremblay and Councillor Jiguer.
Moved by Councillor Tremblay, seconded by Councillor Jiguer. That bylaw number 386725 being a bylaw to appoint a municipal law enforcement officer, provincial offenses officer, and property standards officer for the corporation of the town of Iroquois Falls be read and passed this 15th day of December 2025.
Comments or questions? All in favor? Carried. Now we'll move to correspondence. Can I move in a seconder? Councillor Jiguer, Councillor Bernier.
Moved by Councillor Jiguer, seconded by Councillor Bernier, that the following is received as correspondence. Iroquois Falls Chamber of Commerce meeting minutes from October 27th, 2025. Iroquois Falls Events Committee meeting minutes from August 11th and October 24th, 2025. And the Northeastern Public Health Board of Health meeting minutes, October 23rd, 2025.
On this, Justice, do you mind telling everybody about the Christmas parade coming up?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the question, Mr. Mayor. The annual Iroquois Falls Christmas Parade is coming up this Sunday, December 21st, beginning at 6 p.m. at the Just Jordan Arena. It will be following the regular parade route. We have quite a few parade float entries this year, and we're looking forward to seeing everyone's community spirit.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on the correspondence? All in favor? Carried. So can I get a mover and a seconder to endorse the City of Dryden Resolution number 14? Councillor Tremblay and Councillor LaFive.
Moved by Councillor Tremblay, seconded by Councillor LaFive, that council support and endorse the City of Dryden Resolution number 14, urging the Government of Ontario through the Ministry of Education to incorporate mandatory water safety and swim to survive training into the elementary school curriculum for all Ontario students.
All in favor? Carried. Move on to the next resolution for highways 11 and 17. Trans Canada, can I get a mover and a seconder? Councillor Jiguer and Councillor Tremblay.
Moved by Councillor Jiguer, seconded by Councillor Tremblay. Whereas highways 11 and 17 are vital national transportation corridors across northern and eastern Ontario that require modernization to enhance safety and economic growth. And whereas the proposed 2+1 highway design offers a cost-effective, scalable solution to improve traffic flow and reduce collisions, with the potential to transition into full 4-lane highways as needed. And whereas the Government of Ontario has initiated a pilot 2+1 project between North Bay and Temagami with interest in expanding northward. Therefore, be it resolved that Council for the Town of Iroquois Falls supports the resolution brought forth by the Federation of Northern Ontario Municipalities, endorses the phased implementation of a 2+1 highway program for highways 11 and 17, and urges the provincial and federal governments to recognize this as nation-building initiatives and provide necessary funding and support.
Any comments or questions? All in favor? Carried. You have a mover and a seconder. Alzheimer's Society Cochrane-Temiskaming proclaims January 2025. Councillor LaFive, Councillor Jiguer.
Moved by Councillor LaFive, seconded by Councillor Jiguer, that Council for the Town of Iroquois Falls supports the initiative brought forth by the Alzheimer's Society Cochrane-Temiskaming in recognition of Alzheimer's Awareness Month, and hereby proclaims the month of January 2025 as Alzheimer Awareness Month in the municipality of the Town of Iroquois Falls. And further, that council commits to working in partnership with the Alzheimer's Society and local stakeholders towards building a dementia-friendly community, one in which individuals living with dementia are supported, included, and empowered to remain active participants in community life.
Comments or question, Councilor Fine?
Should be 2026, not 2025.
Oh, thank you. I'll correct that.
Okay, thank you for catching that, Councilor Fine. Anybody else? All in favor? Carried. Looking at a mover and a seconder for bylaw number 3868-25, Councilor Jiguer and Councilor Tremblay.
Moved by Councilor Jiguer, seconded by Councilor Tremblay. That bylaw number 3868-25 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meetings held on the 24th day of November 2025 and the 15th day of December 2025. Be read and passed this 15th day of December 2025.
Comments or questions? All in favor? Carried.
Comment?
All comment, carried.
We've got quite the agenda. Obviously, you guys haven't been doing a whole lot of work while I was away on vacation, so let's see if we can straighten that out next year. And Merry Christmas to everybody.
Is anybody want to say anything on Merry Christmas? Go ahead. Merry Christmas. On behalf of Mayor and Council, I wish everybody a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year and be safe this holiday season. And on behalf of the staff also, thank you. And we'll have a mover and a second for adjournment. Councilor Jiguer and Councilor LaFave.
By Councilor Jiguer, seconded by Councilor LaFave, that this meeting adjourns at 9:02 p.m.
Good night, everyone.